I'm going to try to keep this pretty brief right now. When you're talking about states' rights, I've got to be completely honest with you, it's really hard to know exactly where to get started because things are so messed up right now. So I figured I'd start at the very beginning, and I'd talk a little bit maybe as a way of helping to educate for those that may not have had the time to read because we're busy with our own lives and jobs and everything else. The issue today is the same as it has been throughout all history, whether a man shall be allowed to govern himself or be ruled by a small elite. That's what Thomas Jefferson said in his day. There's three different things that our founding fathers were wise enough to give to us to allow us to govern ourselves so that we don't ever wind up being in a position to where we're ruled by a small elite. First thing, the Constitution was designed to allow citizens to govern themselves by giving the state sovereignty. The United States Constitution in Article 4, Section 4 says that the United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government. Now add that to the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment, I've got a microphone and paper in my hand. I'm not going to quote the 10th Amendment. I'm sure that's going to happen later on tonight. But basically, let me paraphrase what the 10th Amendment says. The 10th Amendment is the people telling the federal government, hey, any powers that we forgot to give you in the United States Constitution, and any powers that we forgot to tell you that you don't have, well, just to be on the safe side, you don't have any of those powers either.
That's right.
We're also protected outside of what's written in the law, with checks on the federal government. James Madison believed that in order for states to protect their sovereignty, they must be active participants in the affairs of the national government. This is what he said. The state legislators must have some means of defending themselves against the encroachments of the national government. And what better means can be provided than by giving them some share in national government? In other words, what he's saying, in order for states to be allowed to protect their sovereignty, we need to send them to Washington, D.C. to be a check on the federal government. Yes. Article 1, Section 3. Article 1, Section 3 of the United States Constitution. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, chosen by the legislature thereof. The whole reason behind the legislative branch within the state government appointing their U.S. senators, that prevents a whole host of problems. U.S. senators at that time, they weren't allowed to make campaign promises, first of all. Second of all, they were appointed, which means they discussed federal affairs with state legislators because the states had an interest in protecting their sovereignty. That's the whole reason behind Article 1, Section 3. Article 2, Section 2. That's how we govern our treaties. How we make treaties. Well, guess what? The Congress doesn't really have any say in treaties, but you know who does have a say? The United States Senate. The reason is because if we're going to compromise national sovereignty, the states sure better have a say in whether or not they want to compromise their sovereignty. So all this talk about the federal government being so big, the federal government's really in charge. States really don't have sovereignty. It's just some more borders that we throw in here to give people little positions to make them feel good, make people feel good. That's bogus, 100% baloney. Of course, the federal government would like for all of us to believe that. But it's not true. Because we can govern ourselves better when we do it ourselves and not leave it up to a ruling elite. In the Federalist Papers, number 45, here's what James Madison wrote. The powers delegated by the proposed Constitution to the federal government are few and defined. Those which are to remain in the state governments are numerous and indefinite. Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution lists to Congress the enumerated powers that they have. They've only got a certain amount of enumerated powers. They do not have limited government. If they had limited government, if they could constantly reinterpret the Constitution to fit their cause, then we wouldn't need to enumerate any powers whatsoever. And they think we're stupid. But we're not. They haven't read the bill, and I seriously doubt a lot of them haven't read the Constitution. Does everybody here think they've read the Constitution? All right. Well, somebody's got to read it. And somebody's got to let them know that we have read it. And I said this at the tea party that we had in Union on Monday. If we want to protect our state sovereignty, if we want to protect our individual liberties, we have to take the truth to them. We have to cite the Constitution. We have to let them know that we know what law it is that they're bound to. Thomas Jefferson said, "Is confidence or a strict limit the principles of our Constitution?" He also said, "Confidence everywhere has always been the parent of despotism." In other words, placing our confidence in man, placing our confidence in that ruling elite, has always ushered in a totalitarian form of government. And they would love to have that. If you think otherwise, you are kidding yourself. They would love to have it. You see, in states like Missouri, people are starting to wake up and saying, you know what, you've reached too far one too many times. We're not going to take it any longer. The same quote everywhere I go. And anytime I ever get a microphone and every time I get the opportunity, I want to make sure that this gets drilled into people's minds. If anybody here has heard me speak before, you've heard me say it. Thomas Jefferson said, "In questions of power, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from his mischief by the chains of the Constitution." The Constitution is a chain, and all the links that they have to pull around with are all confined in Article 1, Section 8. This Constitution is a document designed to govern them, not us. Our state governments, is where we have the ability to govern ourselves. I'm going to walk away here in just about 10 seconds. But it's more than just showing up at rallies like this. We're going to hear about some legislation where we're going to make that attempt to reassert our state sovereignty. And that means everybody here needs to have your phones busy, your emails need to be busy, your hands need to be cramped from writing letters. We do not have any time to play around. We don't have any time to just, in some fantasy world, wish that somebody else is going to do it for us and it's going to get done. Looks like a long train. I don't know if you can hear me. But this is really what it boils down to. How much are you all willing to do to keep what little freedom that we have left? And when I say little freedom, I do mean little freedom. Don't be fooled into thinking that you're 100% free just because when you go home, you're going to drive past 7 or 8 different fast food restaurants and you can be able to take your pick. When we're already being told what light bulbs we can and can't have. That's one way to know that they've reached a little bit too far for sure. When they can come into your home and tell you how you can light your house. When they tell you what kind of cars you can and can't drive and what kind of ingredients you can and can't put in your own food, you know that that chain is broken and they're extending their reach and they're putting their hands into your freedom.